Okay. Last night, me and Taylor went to a water lantern festival. So just think Tangled, if you ever seen Tangled, where they send the lanterns up, that kind of a thing, just not in the air, just in the water. And it was really cool, and Winter absolutely loved it. So if you're looking for a win with pretty much anyone, I mean, it was just awesome. Go to a water lantern festival. But one interesting thing about our experience was they had an MC who did a really good job, but then when they kind of started launching the lanterns into the water, they played this pre-recorded tape thing, and it was very kind of new agey, like take a deep breath and feel the good vibes in the air. And
Everybody started doing yoga.
yeah, exactly. And I was kind of laughing to myself as I listened of like, man, this is what people who have no hope have to listen to. This is what people who are seeking for meaning in life but don't know the Lord. You have a perfect representation of our hope in Jesus in these lanterns. We're sitting in the dark, but then you have this light in front of you. And you have to go, well, just you're loved. We don't know by what, but you're loved. And it's like, no. We have a better promise as Christians. And honestly, this one's just for free. It's not a part of my notes, but you are loved. You're loved by the Savior of the world, and He is the light. And I just really kind of was inspired by how it didn't hit yesterday for me, this little tape recording. Just like, man, as Christians, we have a much better story to tell. And our story is that no matter where you come from, no matter what you've been through, God can bring light to your life. And it doesn't matter how dark, doesn't matter how difficult, doesn't matter how sad you are today, there's a hope that tomorrow can be different. So I'm walking into today with that. I'm excited. I really am. And I'm going to take a note out of one of my favorite preacher's books and just kind of forewarn you this way. I'm going to preach it today the way that I feel it. And the last couple weekends, I've been a little bit more tame, haven't gotten as loud. That changes today. Buckle up, essentially, is what I'm trying to encourage you to do, because there's some power in the Word when we get into it. And as I read a familiar story this week, God began to speak new things to me through it. And if you've read the Bible, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where you read something, you're like, man, I've heard this taught on, I've read this before, but then you begin to read it again, and God just starts to do something new. And I really believe God has done something new in my heart today, and my assignment, my task is really to just give that to you the best that I can. And today the title, the topic of what we're talking about is very simple. It's chores or choices. So often we approach life with a chore mindset. I have to, I'm forced to, I can't wait till this is over. I really believe we have an opportunity to change that into choices. We're going to be picking up in Genesis 39, verses 1 through 6. This is the story of Joseph. Joseph has, at this point, he is the 11th of 12 sons. He's one of the youngest. He's his father's favored son, and Joseph has just been betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and that's where the story is picking up for us today. Here's what it says. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an official of Pharaoh, commander of the bodyguards. I want you to take note of that right there. Commander of the bodyguards. We're going to come back to that very near the end of the message, but it's important you catch that title. He is the commander of the bodyguards. Bought him from the hand of the Ishmaelites, who had brought him down from there. But the Lord was with Joseph. So he became a successful man in the house of his master, the Egyptian. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made everything he set his hands to successful. So Joseph found favor in his eyes. And so he served him as a personal servant. And he made him an overseer over his household. And everything that was his, he entrusted into his hand. From the time that he made him an overseer in his house over everything that belonged to him, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house because of Joseph. And the Lord's blessing was on everything that belonged to him, in the house and in the field. So he released everything that he owned into Joseph's hand. And with him in charge, he did not think about anything except the food that he ate. Let's pray. God, right now, I just pray that we would begin to take life on as a choice rather than a chore. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I had this thought as we had our men's group this past Tuesday. A theme for the night really was, man, you need to be where you're supposed to be. And several guys in the group were like, I didn't want to come tonight. I wasn't feeling it. I was exhausted. And the truth is, everybody who didn't want to come kind of had good reasons. They were like, man, I've had an insane week. I'm busy. I had to get off work early. There was traffic. There's 100 reasons, and yet still all those men showed up, and because they showed up, God showed up. And I love that thought of, hey, you got to be where you're supposed to be. You got to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because listen, God can't bless what you don't put your hands to. And I think the honest truth is, for many of us, we have a dream, we have something from God, and we're waiting for him to bless it. And he's going, I'm waiting for you to start. I can't bless what you don't put your hands to. If you haven't started it, I can't bless the work of your hands. I love what it says here, because it says God blessed everything Joseph set his hands to. Not everything Joseph thought about setting his hands to. Not everything that was in the proximity of Joseph. No, everything he put his hands to. And many of us were praying for blessings, and yet we're not putting our hands to the work. There is a time in my life where I was asked to co-lead a small group, and it was by one of my best friends in the world. And when it came night one to do this small group, I was not feeling it. And I was like, I do not want to go. I don't feel like it. I think I was probably 17 at the time. And I texted him and I said, hey, not going to make it. No good reason for it. I just said I'm not going to make it, and kind of left it there. And I'm not proud of it, but I probably played FIFA for the next 6 hours after that text message. And what I noticed after that moment was, hey, even though I was doing whatever I wanted, it still left me empty at the end. And I think probably everybody in this room can relate with that feeling that, hey, when I do whatever I want, oftentimes it leaves me empty. But when I do what is needed, oftentimes I'm still tired at the end, but I get rest after. And there is nothing better than a good sleep after a 12-hour workday. Let me tell you what, you hit the pillow and you pass out. And yet on the other side of that coin, I think it's so often that when we do whatever we want, not only does it leave us empty at the end, but then our rest, the time where we're supposed to sleep, recuperate, is restless, right? We toss and turn all night when we haven't put ourselves to work, when we haven't done what we were called to do. And it's really a pattern I've seen in my own life, and truthfully, I think it's a pattern in society. You know, we have rising levels of depression. In fact, when COVID hit, depression went up 700%. 700% when COVID hit. And it's this interesting thing because people were no longer doing what they needed to do, what they were supposed to be doing, which is working, participating in society. You know, now we were told, no, stay home. And people began staying home, and we developed these bad habits of not putting ourselves in uncomfortable situations, not being forced to do what we ought to. And so people began falling into these cycles where it was like, hey, comfort is more important than needs. Comfort is all that I'm truly seeking. And I just kind of want to push back a little bit on that thinking today, if it's okay. Hey, listen, I'm not in this life for comfort. I'm not in this life for comfortable. And I don't care what circumstances life gives me. There's chores or there's choices. And if I approach life as a chore, something I'm forced to do, something that I'm not happy with because, well, Matthew, you don't know what they did to me. Well, Matthew, I got passed over for the promotion. Well, Matthew, you don't know the household I grew up in. You don't know the upbringing I was given. And so this actually isn't my fault. And then we begin to approach the tasks in life we have, not as a choice, but as a chore. I just have to get through this. And yet I truly believe today, it doesn't matter what circumstances you find yourself in, if we will change our perspective and go, no, life is not a chore, life is a choice. And regardless of if my brothers sold me into slavery, regardless of how I ended up here, I'm going to make the choice today to do what I should be doing, to be about the business I'm called to. I used to sweep floors at the church I was at, and I used to literally envision myself sweeping the floor for God. And it's kind of a funny visual, but it's the honest truth is I would vacuum or sweep or these different things, but I put some meaning behind what I was doing. And I was like, hey, you know what? No pastor's going to see this. My boss isn't going to see this, but there is one who sees what's done in secret. There is one who sees my heart before him, and I'm just doing it for him. I'm not doing it for people. I'm doing it for him. This isn't a chore. It doesn't matter what the task is. This is a choice because I'm just happy to be in the Lord's house. So it doesn't matter what you put my hands to. Listen, it was a chore, but I was making a choice. And today I want to invite all of us into that choice. Because if we're not careful, we're going to buy into the very same lie that made it all go wrong in the garden, which is God's holding out on you. The serpent approaches Eve and he goes, Did God really say you can't eat from all the trees in the garden? She said, No, we can eat from the trees, just not this one tree. Because we're going to die if we eat from that tree. And Satan goes, No. You will not surely die. Because God knows when you eat of that tree, you will be like him. That's the first lie. The first lie is God is holding out on you. And the situation you find yourself in is God trying to hold out. He's trying to say, no, I have better things, but that's not for you. And I'm just going to tell it like I feel it. That's not true. Deuteronomy 30:19 says it this way. It says, I call the heavens and the earth to witness about you today, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and a curse. Therefore choose life, that you and your descendants may live. I love this thought because, listen, I can't create life, but I can choose it. And so often in different seasons, we get frustrated and we're like, well, God, the choices in front of me aren't that clear. Or God, I'm pretty frustrated. Or God, you're asking me to serve evil people. God, you're asking me to serve people who aren't godly. And yet all the same in front of us, there's life and there's death. But we get to choose. And there's this wrong thinking that has infected the church that somehow God is just going to make those choices, or when we choose wrong, we're still going to get there anyways. But listen, the hard truth, the honest truth is you get to determine the direction of your life. The word says men make their plans, God establishes their steps. Okay? Listen, God will not establish your steps in a direction you're not willing to go. And some of us may be like, well, Matthew, God is sovereign and his plan is great. God is sovereign, but God in his sovereignty gave you a choice. You chose to be here this morning. You chose to wear what you're wearing this morning. And the very fact we can have that decision is proof you have a choice. You have the ability to decide. Now, I do believe God works in ways we don't understand. I believe he works things together that we can't quite comprehend. I agree with all of that. And here's the truth. God can work your worst decisions for good. God can do all of that. And yet, all the same, there is something ingrained inside of people that we need to know. I can affect my own destiny. I love Deuteronomy because it tells us God set before us life and death. God set the things before us, but at the end of the day, listen, you got to choose. You have to decide, am I going to go for life or am I going to go for death? Because there's almost a pleading in this verse where God says, choose life. Notice today, he didn't say, I chose life for you. He didn't say, life chose you. He gives you the option. He says, you choose. So my salvation doesn't come from my works, but I still got to choose it. It's a gift, but if you don't receive the gift, how are you ever going to benefit from it? Today, I want to push us just a little bit and go, hey, are there areas of our life where we've begun to respond as though this is a chore? And God is trying to simply say, no, this is a choice. There is a tension between what God has said and what we're doing. And I just kind of want to sit on this for a minute, because really the last 2 weeks, we talked about getting slow before the Lord, being obedient, spending good quality time with Him. But when you spend that time with Him, the goal is for Him to speak, and then you know what to do. And I never want to preach one side of this coin without teaching the other as well, because it's two sides. There's a tension between these things, and if it's all God, all God, all God, then why in the world are we even here, right? God gave us a free will. He put us on the earth for a reason. And then if we come over here and we go, well, it's all us, all us, all us, all us, all us, well, then what in the world is God doing? God's still moving. The Bible teaches that He still speaks. He still moves. He's given us His Spirit. And so there's this tension between the two. My favorite example of this, my father-in-law shared it with me, is it's like a guitar string, right? You have to have tension on both ends of the string for it ever to make something beautiful. And if you're only here, or if you're only here, you're never going to make any music. But when you create the tension between the two of, I'm waiting for God, I'm listening for God, but the moment He speaks, I'm moving, I'm working, I'm choosing what He said, that's when God begins to make something beautiful. There's a tension. God says, today I've set before you life and death. And Joseph, I love his story. As far as I read, he really does well in this tough season. Potiphar's wife, I like to call her Hotiphar. She comes up and she starts, making some eyes at Joseph. She's like, ooh, he's kind of handsome. And this tension develops between the two of them until really comes to a head. She's been trying to seduce him. He's been avoiding her. And then one day she grabs his cloak and she's like, let's go jump in bed. It's going down. And he's like, I'm not doing that. And then he runs out of there and she then lies about him. And I think so many of us, when we get thrown in a situation we don't love and then it gets worse, our immediate response is frustration. Our immediate response is, what the heck, God? Joseph, he ends up getting thrown into prison, and he goes from sold into slavery to being diligent, doing well, serving in his master's house. He gets raised up in the master's house to be over the entire household, and then he's lied about wrongly. He didn't do anything wrong. He's thrown into prison. And I think so many of us, when that occurs, when you go, hey, something bad happened, I chose right anyways, and then it still failed, we decide, okay, it's time to stop swinging, I guess. It's time to stop trying. And there's a thought I want to share with you, and it's about Major League Baseball players. Hall of Fame Major League Baseball players hit the ball 23% of the time. 23% of the time. And these are the greatest ever. So what changes from one at-bat to another? The preparation doesn't change. They prepped the same for each at-bat. They swung the same. The technique was the same. And yet, more than 3/4 of the time, they're not connecting. They're not hitting. They're not getting on base. And I wonder today how many of us are swinging, we're doing everything right, but because sometimes we strike out anyways, we begin to go, oh, well, this might just not be my sport. Well, maybe I've just missed it. Well, maybe God made a mistake by putting me here. Maybe I was never supposed to be here in the first place, and God's just going, no, you got another at-bat coming up. You're going to get back on base, and you need to not be afraid to swing for the fences, because here's what I know. The Hall of Fame baseball players who actually make it, they're not the guys who get there because, well, I didn't make any mistakes. No, they're there because they kept swinging anyways. They're there because they said, it doesn't matter how many misses I have, I'm swinging for the fences again and again because I got a vision. I got a dream. There is life and there is death before me, and I am choosing life. I am pursuing life. I am chasing it. And so I will be diligent again and again and again and again and again until I hit the fences. I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep swinging. And I love that thought, because you would think, man, you've failed way more than you've succeeded. And yet in heaven, I truly believe the record is not kept based off how many times you failed. It's how many times through Christ you have succeeded. How many times you swung anyways, and God goes, you see my boy out there? You see my daughter? They just keep on swinging. And yeah, they've missed, and yeah, they've lost. And the truth is, sometimes we just miss it. Sometimes we miss it with what God's saying, and we just got to be honest. Listen, I miss it. I love God a lot. I feel like I hear his voice, and sometimes I feel like I got a word from the Lord. I'm like, this is the direction we're going, and this is what we're going to do. And then you get a month or two down that line, and you go, God ain't in this. I missed it on that one. And listen, it's okay to go, okay, let's take a step back, and let's just try swinging again. Because maybe that just wasn't my at bat. That just wasn't the time it was going to happen. But it is okay to step back up to the plate. Joseph, the word tells us this in Genesis 39:20. It says Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. Listen, I love this phrase. So there he was in prison. I love that, because anytime the Bible repeats itself, it just told us he put him in prison. But then it goes, so there he was in prison. And that just catches my attention every single time, because it's like, oh, the Bible's trying to emphasize something for us in this moment, that because he's in the prison, a scene is beginning to be set up. And so many of you just go, well, here I am. I'm stuck in this sin. I'm stuck in this season. I'm stuck in this job. I'm stuck with this debt. I'm stuck with this mortgage. I'm stuck with this person. I'm stuck with this whatever. And I almost feel like God's just setting the stage, and he's like, so there they are, stuck. And all the same, something's sitting before us. God's going, hey, you got life and you got death. Let me tell you what, even in a prison cell, you still get to choose. Even in the worst moments of your life, you still get to go, hey, am I going to be where I'm supposed to be? Am I going to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Even in a prison, I can be serving. There is an idea in psychology that has begun to develop over the past 50, 75 years, and it's this phrase, locus of control. What this phrase means is it is your understanding or what you view as the things that control the direction of your life. And what they've found through studies is that people who have an external locus of control, meaning they think their circumstances, the people around them determine the direction of their life, they are the most depressed, the least successful, and the least happy people in the world. And yet on the other side of this coin, the people who believe, I can make a difference. I determine my life. The habits that I do today will make a difference in my future. They are the most successful, they are the most happy, and they are the most effective people. Now, this is fascinating to me, because I really believe God created the rules of the universe to follow his character and his heart. And so if God puts something inside of us that says, hey, this idea of total surrender, and it's all God, and it's la-di-da, and yet that doesn't make us happy, somewhere along the way, we've made a mistake. Because if across the board, across societies, across time, everyone who's ever lived go, the most happy and the most effective people are the ones who go, I can make an impact. My decisions have an effect. That should mean God is trying to convince us you got to take responsibility. You can't abdicate and go, oh, well, if God would change my situation, if God would snap his fingers, then I would choose life. Actually, no, you wouldn't. Because if you don't believe you can change your life today in the season that you're in, it doesn't matter what season God puts you in. It doesn't matter. In fact, did you know suicide is actually a privilege of the upper class? In third world countries and African countries and countries where they're in destitute poverty, they don't even have clean drinking water. You know they don't commit suicide? America has the highest suicide rate in the world, and we are the most affluent country in world history. And it's because somehow in this culture we've begun to think, well, everything's just going to go for me. Everything's just going to work out. It's okay. And we don't take responsibility and go, no, I have a part to play. And if my part to play is walking 3 miles to get water every single day, I can live today. I can live. And so I'm going to choose life, not death. My question for us today, Christians, is do you actually believe you can create the life you want to? Do you believe you have a choice? Do you believe you have a role in this process? There was a fascinating study done about 50 years ago. Could have been a little less than 50 years ago. Either way, it was in Flint, Michigan, and it was on a General Motors factory. And essentially, this was the worst factory in the nation. The culture of the factory at the time was essentially, no matter what, never stop the assembly line. Because for every minute the assembly line was stopped, it was $15,000. Again, we're talking years and years ago, 50 years ago. So $15,000 back then is probably a little bit closer to like $75,000 today. That's a lot of dough. And so there's this rule, you do not stop the assembly line. Worst factory in the nation. In fact, the culture was everybody was drinking on the job, doing drugs on the job. Somebody had pulled up a trailer full of prostitutes in the parking lot, and so people would leave in the middle of their shift and go have sex with these prostitutes. Like, terrible work culture. And so the factory shuts down, new ownership or management over the factory comes in, and they decide, hey, we're going to go study and we're going to make a business deal with Toyota to go study how they're doing it. Because somehow factories in Japan not only outproduce factories in America, they produce better things than Americans do. They produce higher quality vehicles than we do. And so they took this same team, they did not change the team, they took the same team and they began flying them out in batches to Japan to study Toyota. Now, it was interesting because when they got there, the one rule at GM in Flint, Michigan was never stop the line. No matter what mistakes you make, never stop the line. They get to Toyota and they begin watching, and within about 15 minutes of watching these Japanese workers at the assembly line, one of them, he's putting a bolt onto a car. I think it was a door he was working on. He puts a bolt on and then he cross threads the screw, or the bolt and the nut. He cross threads them. And he's got this little cord and he pulls it and a yellow light begins spinning and the entire factory stops. Manager walks over and this foreman from America is like, oh, it's about to go down. He just stopped the line. But he's shocked because they begin this conversation and it looks like the factory worker is turning to the manager and he's telling him what to do. And he's kind of giving him the business a little bit. And the manager's just kind of standing there. He says a couple things, but he sits there and just watches the guy. So the guy then takes off the panel he's just put on, grabs a tool, rethreads the bolt, and over the course of about 5-10 minutes, ends up getting this part fixed there in the moment. Boom, right there, done. Totally different than in America. $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 was spent on this 2 to 5 minutes. And the guy's like, this is kind of weird, man. And then as he continued to watch for the rest of the day, he saw again and again these employees, they pull the cord, the manager comes over, but the manager's not really the one in charge. It's the guy who's doing the work. And the manager's just kind of there of like, hey, you need a hand? Like, how can I help? And then he noticed something else is because they were the ones with their hands on the problem, they would go to their manager and they'd go, hey, I have an idea for a tool. And he would kind of sketch out something, and it doesn't matter what employee, any employee could do this. They would sketch out a little tool and go, I think if you make me this tool, I can be more effective. The manager would then take the paper into a back room where they had an entire team of fabricators ready on a moment's notice to begin fabricating more tools for the workers to be able to do their jobs better. 15 minutes after he draws this little diagram, they have a prototype in his hand. His manager and him work for the rest of the day on this tool, iterating and changing it and going, turn this a little bit and change this angle. By the next morning, every single worker in the factory had a completed version of that tool on their box. And this guy's like, what in the world's going on with these Japanese people? This is way different. And so he takes it back to Flint, Michigan, and they institute these new policies, and they go, hey, you just pull the cord. But because it's the same people, they're all like, no, we don't pull the cord here. That's not how we do. And so in the first month, they had maybe 5 cord pulls because they're like, I ain't stopping the line. And so the gentlemen from Toyota, they come over and they begin to watch and to see, hey, how's it working? And one of them's watching this worker, and he's trying to put a taillight in a vehicle, and it's not quite working. And the gentleman from Toyota comes over. He goes, hey, it's okay. Just pull the cord. And he's like, no, I can get it. I promise. I can get it. He's like, no, just pull the cord. It's okay. He ends up having to take the man over and help him grab the cord and pull the cord. It only took a minute or two. He gets the tail light out. He fixes it. He puts it in. He is sweating and he's shaking and he's worried. And he's like, oh, my managers are watching. And that's, $30,000 that was just spent on the 2 minutes it took me to get that tail light fixed. Well, this guy from Toyota turns to him and he goes, listen, I am so sorry that we have not made clear the importance of pulling the cord. He goes, because you need to understand, without you, none of this is possible. And so it is more valuable to me that you pull the cord than that we ever make money. By the end of the day, that story had worked all the way through the entire factory of one of the richest men in the world came and was like, I am in this for you. All of a sudden, they're having a dozen, 2 dozen, 100 cord pulls every single day of people going, hey, I'm just going to buy into this system. They turned that factory from the bottom producing factory in the world, or in the nation, to the top producing factory in the nation. And they kept stopping production. They kept pulling the cords. You would think it would be counterintuitive. You go, the math doesn't even add up. If you're stopping production all the time, how in the world are you producing more cars? Well, the reason is when you give people buy-in, when you go, hey, you are an integral part of this process. Without you, none of this happens. All of a sudden, some buy-in starts to happen. All of a sudden, they start to walk different, behave differently, talk differently. And here's the other great part is their hands are actually on the project. They know what actually needs to be done. It's not some dude up in an ivory tower coming up with solutions for something you're in the middle of. And that was the philosophy of Toyota. They said, we want to put the solution, we want to put the responsibility for any solution into the hands of the guy closest to the problem. And I truly believe this is God's solution. I believe this is God's management style. I believe that's why anytime, any company, you can research this, any company in history has begun empowering with a healthy culture, empowering the people at the bottom with the power to make the change they want to see happen, the company explodes. It does incredibly well. Success begins to pile on success. And here's the other thing, employees don't leave because they go, nobody treats me this way. When I'm here, they need me. I believe God is the same way. I believe God gives you the opportunity to change your life. And he goes, hey, you want to know what blessing looks like? It looks like I will stand here and whatever you need to get this done, I am right here. You need a tool? Tell me what the tool is. I'll go to my fabricators and I'll make something for you. You need some help? You need some advice? I'll bankroll this whole thing. We can sit at this one part all day because I'll tell you what, you are my solution. My solution doesn't get done in a boardroom. My solution doesn't get done in heaven. My solution gets done boots on the ground. And many of us, we're looking at problems and we're going, God, when are you going to fix this? God, when are you going to change this? God, when are you going to send something from heaven? And God's saying, I sent you. You're my solution. I'm standing here. I'm ready. You tell me what you need because you're the one with your hands in this. You're the one staring at this problem. You're the one in the middle of it. You're my solution. And so if you have a burning desire in your heart going, man, I really can't stand this. I don't love what's happening. There's an injustice, or I believe something can be done better. There's good news. God's calling you to fix it. And if you see something in your life and you go, man, this could be different, make it different. You have to understand today, you determine the direction of your life. And God can bless it, but listen, God can't bless what you're not doing. Joseph was blessed when he put his hands to work, even in slavery, even in prison. Even in prison, God began to bless him. I love this story because Joseph, he gets thrown in prison, and if it were me, I would be livid. I'd be like, are you kidding me again? And instead, Joseph starts serving. Puts his head down and goes, oh, it's going down. I love it because as he starts to serve, now the head of the prison goes, oh man, this Joseph guy, he kind of knows what he's doing. In fact, I'm going to put Joseph in charge of the entire prison. And now the Bible tells us he's sitting back. He not thinking about anything because Joseph's in charge. Man, if that isn't a testament, I don't know what is. Imagine if you served in such a way that it doesn't matter who I'm serving, doesn't matter what I'm doing. When I'm in the room, you better believe it's getting done. And so, God, you put me in prison. You put me in Potiphar's house. You put me as second in command of all of Egypt. I'll tell you what, business is getting done. I'm not in here doing chores. I'm in here making a choice. Listen, today I want you guys to hear me. I don't clean my room because I like making the bed. I don't work out because I love the pain of the process. I do it because I'm a prince of heaven, and you better believe a prince of heaven doesn't live in filth. I'm not doing chores, I'm making a choice. I understand that the process is part of the promise. And so I work out because I want to have a temple fit for the Lord's service. I don't work out because I like going out and suffering in the heat or the cold or the wet. No. I want to be a temple for the Lord's service, so it could either be a chore if I have to do this, or it can be a choice of I get to. And we need to make a change in our minds that says, hey, perhaps this can be good. Perhaps even in a prison, this can be good. I was in youth ministry, and I say youth ministry, I was in youth group volunteering with the ministry, and they created 4 teams, and it was funny because these 4 teams were like based off of your natural kind of leaning and bent. And one of the teams was called Belong, I think, which was like the group of people who are really good with people. And so any of the volunteers who were just killer communicators, they're like, you're in this group, you go meet the new kids, you go love on them. And they did not put me in that group. They put me in the build group, which for somebody who wants to be a pastor, it's a little bit of a kick in the not nice places. It's like, what the heck, man? Like, I want to be a pastor. And they put me on the build team. They're like, Matthew, here's where you'll be good. You'll be good in the position where you talk to nobody. And it's like, man, that's kind of tough. And I had a decision to make. It was either I can be faithful with what I've been given, or I can be bitter about what I wasn't. And so I just decided I'm going to be the best dang build team member you ever met. I'm going to get here early. I'm not going to complain. Whoever I'm working with, I'm going to talk with them. I'm going to build a relationship with them. And then when service starts, there's nothing else to build. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to connect with people anyways. I'm going to go love on people. It doesn't matter if they see the gifting. I'm just going to be faithful with what I know I've been called to do. And so I began to build, and I also began to connect. And I said, listen, it doesn't matter what other people see in me. I know what God the Father says about me. And many of us, we allow mantras in our head that our circumstances color the vision of what God says about us. And we begin to think because of where you live, where you go to school, what your hobbies are, that is somehow what God sees. And yet I guarantee you God sees something different. God's looking down, man, I see a Prince of Heaven, a co-heir with Christ. You better believe no matter where they are, they're bringing the kingdom down. Everywhere Jesus went, you better believe the King of Heaven was there. I'm just convinced today that our call is, hey, I'm not doing chores. I'm making a choice. It's interesting because Joseph, he gets one more slap in the face. He is working, and all of a sudden, the king has an issue with the head of the cupbearers and the head baker. I want to read to you what it says here in Genesis 40, 1 through 6. Now it was after these things that the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master. And the king of Egypt, their master, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, with the chief of the cupbearers and the chief of the bakers. So he put them into the custody of the house of the commander of the bodyguards. Hey, remind me for a second, who's the commander of the bodyguards? Potiphar. The commander of the bodyguards is Joseph's old master. I have never seen this before, no matter how many times I've read this story. I always read this and I went, they were just happened to be thrown into the same prison with Joseph. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. They were given to Joseph's old master. Now read what happens next. In the place where Joseph was confined, the commander of the bodyguards assigned Joseph, Potiphar, the dude who put him there in the first place, assigned Joseph to be with them and serve them as their personal servant. Let me tell you something. If the same dude who put me there shows up years later and goes, hey, I know you're running this whole thing, but I tell you what, we got a problem up here where the important people are, and so no longer do you get to run things down here. In fact, you're relegated to personal servant. Somebody in the room better be like, what the heck, dude? It wasn't enough for you to throw me in prison for no good reason. Now you're going to take me and you're going to take me from in charge of the prison. Now I'm just a personal servant in this hellhole of a prison. Are you kidding me? I read this story and I'm like, man, if I was Joseph, I would be mad. I would be livid. What the heck, Potiphar? And our natural response would be spite. Oh, you're going to do this to me? I'll show you. I'll get back at you. You've given me a chance with these guys. I'll tell you what, I'll show you. And so it can be either spite or there's another side to this, and it is we can listen to the Spirit. Because I think something else happened here. I read that, and what I recognize is it says that the commander of the bodyguard, Potiphar, he made Joseph their personal servant. And I read that and I go, hold on. What position did Joseph hold in Potiphar's house? He was his personal servant. You know what I really think happened? I think Potiphar is given this chief baker and this chief cupbearer, and he goes, hey, I don't like this guy, this Joseph guy. But I'll tell you what, that dude can serve. And just in case these guys are brought back into the presence of the king, I want them to be taken care of. And I know the right man for the job. And he goes, hey, Joseph, I need you to be these men's personal servant. Listen, because I saw what happened when you were my personal servant? What would our lives look like if even our enemies looked at us and they went, I cannot deny the life that you lead. I cannot deny how effective you are at what you do. I get so excited when I read this because the natural response is, what the heck, Potiphar? And yet, listen today, Christians, perhaps this is not a statement about Joseph being nothing. Perhaps this is a statement about how faithful Joseph has been. Perhaps this is a statement about the man who was faithful in slavery, the man who's been faithful in prison. He just gets one more chance to be faithful. Now, I love this because I'm going to read to you what happens next. And listen, you guys better get excited with me today because this is incredible. The next verse, here's what it says. And they were in custody, listen, for some time. Some of us, we get angry when we're in a situation for some time. Like, I've been in this for months. I've been in this for years. When's it going to end? But Joseph, he is the man. Here's what it says. Then the two of them each dreamed a dream on the same night. The dream of each man, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, each had its own interpretation. And when Joseph came to them in the morning, he observed them, listen, and there they were. You remember that statement from earlier? And there he was in prison. Can somebody say God setting the stage? Because he walks in the room where there he is, and all of a sudden, there they were. And listen, looking miserable. What they found, the most effective workers in the world are men who practice this thing called mental visualization. And people who are really good at believing, hey, I can make a difference, visualize their day. They visualize, this is how it's going to go, this is how my drive's going to go, this is how my job's going to go, and this is how the problems are going to happen, and this is how I'm going to solve them. And they're visualizing, this is what it looks like, this is what succeeding is. The best athletes in the world, they visualize everything before they do it. And so Tom Brady, he stands in the huddle and he picks a play and then he visualizes, okay, he's going to run there and he's going to cut and I'm going to hit him. And he's visualizing. Nurses in hospitals, the best nurses visualize. I heard a story about a nurse who saved a baby. She had no extra information than the other nurses who checked the baby. The baby was fine. They were like, oh, the levels are showing normal. This one nurse walks in, but because she's been visualizing, this is what a child looks like. She looks at this baby and this baby doesn't look right. And she goes, hold on, something's wrong. Orders drugs for the child. She ended up saving the child's life. Had it been just a few more minutes before the child got on medication, the child would have died. But because she had a picture of what success looked like, because she'd been thinking about it, because she knew, hey, I can make a difference here, she began to make that difference. Joseph, I believe, he is one of the most effective people in the Bible. Joseph is visualizing. He was there for some time. He knew what this chief cupbearer and this chief baker were supposed to look like. So he walks in the room and he goes, hold on a minute. Something's not right. And you wouldn't notice something's not right if you didn't care. You wouldn't notice something's not right if you're not diligent. But he walks in there looking miserable and he goes, hold on a minute. Something's not right. If you know the story, Joseph got in trouble in the first place with his brothers before he was ever sold into slavery because he was talking about a dream, because he opened his mouth. And I just love the way God turns things, because Joseph had the choice to be faithful, but it's just like God that the moment everything changed for Joseph had to do with a dream. He walks in the room, something ain't right, and they're like, we had a dream. And Joseph goes, I love dreams. Let's talk about these dreams. Joseph, he interprets the dreams for him. And listen, 2 years after that moment, they forget about him. It's 2 more years before he ends up going before Pharaoh and interpreting a dream for Pharaoh. But can I tell you something? Joseph, 3 different times in what we've been through today, said, hey, I can choose life or I can choose death, and I'm just choosing life. Doesn't matter if I'm a slave, doesn't matter if I'm in prison, doesn't matter if I'm in prison and then I made someone slave. I am choosing life. And today my message is very, very, very simple. You get to choose. And God's going to stand there. He's going to be next to you, and he's going to be encouraging you. Hey, I'm with you. I'm on your side. You need a tool. You need some help. I am with you, but I cannot bless what you refuse to put your hands to. Listen, if you are in a season and you go, I don't know what to do from this, listen, be faithful and believe God can turn it for your good. Because I love the fact God sets this stage, and there Joseph was in prison. And then the men are looking miserable, and there they were. Perhaps the process will teach you to recognize the promise. Perhaps the faithfulness you're learning in this season is the purpose. And perhaps the promise is just around the corner. But I want to leave you with this, and I love Joseph's heart here is he refused to quit until it was good. And if I could encourage you with anything today, it is that you should choose life again and again and again until it's good. Because here's what I will not do. I will not quit just before it's good. And my story will not be, yep, I tried and tried and tried, but eventually I got too tired. Nope. When I get through heaven's doors, you better believe, no matter if I end up on a stage with 1 million people watching or if we're in my living room for the rest of my life, you better believe I'm going to be saying, God, I chose life. And I just believe one day you're going to bless it. Will you bow your heads and close your eyes with me? I really just want to invite you in this moment to ask God, what is my response? Is there an area you're asking me to be faithful? Is there an area where you're asking me to choose life? Is there an area where you're asking me to serve somebody I do not want to serve? God, is there a situation that you just want to shift my perspective and go, hey, this isn't a chore, this is a choice. So God, our response right now is just to choose. God, we choose you, we choose life. And we are not going to stop swinging. We're not going to get disappointed from the losses. We're just going to get our heads up and go, hey, where is life? Because I'm going to choose it. So God, I just pray for the courage to keep making that choice. The determination to say, I will not quit. And no matter what people have done to me, no matter where I've come from, no matter what situation I find myself in today, I get to choose where I'm going. And today I choose life. It's in Jesus' name. Amen.